This week on WestfordCAT News, the school committee grapples with budgetary challenges. The select board pays tribute to a retiring police chief and a retiring building inspector who is much more than that. Despite a pandemic, 3 new restaurants are popping up in town. I'm Joyce Polino Crane. Stay with us. WestfordCAT News is next. Concerned that if changes aren't made in the school department, there will be a $1 million shortfall, Superintendent Bill Olsen on January 11th proposed to the school committee moving from a 3-tiered school bus system to a 4-tiered one. The silver lining? This gives him the option of pushing back school start times that would allow middle and high school students a longer period of sleep in the morning.
Tonight's discussion is framed from 2 different issues and perspectives that we are dealing with and have been dealing with for several years now. First and foremost, we will be entering a fiscal year in fiscal 2022 that is probably the most difficult and challenging that I've seen in the last 25 years in Westford. The revenues from the federal government, state government, local are all down because of the pandemic. And that means a shortage of revenues to appropriate to all town departments, including the school system. So we are facing a revenue and an appropriation increase for next year that is among the smallest that we've ever seen at the present time. And it could be subject to change either way. At the present time, however, our appropriation increase for next year is approximately 1.4%. Now that is consistent with other town departments. Could be even a little bit more than some of the town departments, but it's a reflection of the revenue situation and shortfall.
Olsen said the University of Minnesota has researched start times for students, finding that they benefited by a later start time. Olsen came prepared with several slides to illustrate his recommendations and to explain the concerning financial picture.
My presentation tonight will accomplish 2 things. It will allow us to cut about $444,000 from next year's budget. And to equate that to programs and services, that's about anywhere from 8 to 10 staff members if we look at a teacher's salary, okay? Keeping in mind that the lowest salaried teachers would be bumped out because they have the least amount of experience. So $444,000 in savings, but it also allows us to take advantage once again of the sleep research. So Chris, if you could bring up the slides, please, and I'll be glad to discuss them with the community, and glad to answer as many questions as we possibly can. And I want to thank our principals for being with us tonight also, because they have been part of this discussion.
To watch the entire January 11th school committee meeting, visit westfordcat.org. 2 well-liked residents were honored by select board members on January 12th. Police Chief Tom McEnany and Building Inspector Chet were praised for their many years of service to the town. Here's Select Board Chair Andrea Perriner-Sweet with a timeline of McEnany's career.
We are paying tribute and honoring the service of 2 longtime town employees. Between the 2 of them, they have 91 years of service to the town of Westford, and I think that's pretty incredible. First, Chief Tom McEnany. Chief McEnany and his family are longtime residents of Westford. Currently living under his roof are 4 generations of McEnany's. Chief and his wife Lorraine, his mother-in-law, who probably technically isn't a McEnany, 3 of his 4 children, and 3 of his 4 grandchildren who are the apples of his eye. Chief McEnany has spent his entire career as part of the Westford Police Department. He began in 1985 as a 20-year-old auxiliary police officer, primarily responsible for traffic safety and dispatch. Less than a year later, he became an interim police officer, and in 1987, the chief became a full-time police officer. In 1989, he moved into the Criminal Investigation Division as an inspector, which is what we now call detective. 2 years later, the chief was promoted to the rank of detective sergeant, supervising and overseeing all criminal investigations. And 6 years after that, he became the first detective lieutenant in our department. He was responsible for supervising court prosecutions and criminal investigations. And then a year later, the chief was promoted to captain, becoming the second in command of the department. 2 years later, and I think we're at about 2000, the chief became the town's first deputy chief. As our deputy chief, he led the town through the state accreditation process. And at that time, the town of Westford and its police department became the 17th department in the state to attain accreditation, a status that it has continually maintained since then. Chet Cook is somebody else who has served this town with zeal, commitment, and dedication over the course of 56 years. I think that qualifies you as an institution, Chet. For 56 years, Chet has been a fixture, well-known, well-recognized, and well-respected in our building department. He began his employment in 1965 as a gas inspector. During his 56 years, Chet has held that position, along with the positions of building inspector, interim building inspector, zoning enforcement officer, tree warden, ombudsman for the town, to the town manager's office, and conservation agent. In addition, for 36 years, he found time to serve on the Conservation Commission. He also served on the town manager's search committee and the Industrial Development Commission, which is the predecessor to today's Economic Development Committee. He is also, as we all know, married to Nancy Cook. No easy task, I am sure. They have been married for 42 years. They have 5 children and 11 grandchildren who adore their Grampy. Anyone who has ever come in contact with Chet has always been met with a smile and with a twinkle of his eye. He was always ready to assist and help, whether it be a resident, town boards or commissions, or a wayward developer. He is consummate in being able to resolve differences between warring neighbors, and a former assistant town manager and interim town manager would refer to his skills on the par and equivalent to Henry Kissinger.
Mark Chambers will be appointed Provisional Police Chief beginning January 24th. At Lowell General Hospital this winter, frontline workers are weighing hope with despair as hospital beds fill with COVID-19 patients, even while vaccinations begin. Here is Will Courtney, Lowell General's Media and Public Relations Manager, speaking with me on January 7th about the roller coaster ride of feelings healthcare professionals are experiencing.
So it's such an interesting time in this pandemic. You know, we're one side preparing for the worst of it. The worst is coming, and it's hard for people to balance that with, hey, the vaccine is here and there's hope, and there really is. It's both. And I think as our staff has started to receive the vaccine, there is that, they've spoken about that, especially those people who work in the emergency room and work in the ICUs and have just had 9 months that you couldn't imagine in terms of just the dedication and work to come every day. We did see a slowdown in the summer, but in the fall, it's really ramped up again. For them, there's a sense of hope, but they're sort of girding for the next few weeks here. We really think, unfortunately, after Thanksgiving, we saw a defined spike in patients. We got up, today we're around 55. This is, we got over 70 for a little while on average. But you see these curves and they go up. And so we went up, we're here. What our concern is now the holidays is going to build on that curve. And it's not just going to be sort of a two different curves.
Watch the entire Main Street interview on demand at WestfordCAT.org. Health Director Jeff Stevens confirmed that vaccinations for COVID-19 took place this week for frontline workers. Here he is with more.
Currently, the towns of Westford, Chelmsford, Kingsborough, Tewksbury, Billerica, and Dracut are collaborating to vaccinate all of our first responders, which is police, fire, and dispatch. We have 3 days set up for these clinics. We're waiting for everybody to register through a system called PrepMod. We have the vaccine, and we have already vaccinated all of our volunteers at the clinic, which includes medical and non-medical.
And so I was one of the blessed people to be able to get the shot. And I'm going to help with the clinic tomorrow. And I will tell you that I had a sore arm, but besides that, I had really no symptoms. And what I've been told is it's the Moderna vaccine that we're getting, and I got, and that within 2 weeks from the vaccination, you're going to be 60% immune. And then with the second vaccine, which is a month later, after 2 weeks, you will be almost fully immune.
Watch the entire January 11th Board of Health meeting on demand at WestfordCAT.org. There are 3 new restaurants in town. Ocho Cafe of Westford is taking over the property at 149 Littleton Road, formerly the site of the British Beer Company, which is no longer in Westford. 355 Littleton Road is the name of the restaurant and the address. It was formerly the Craft Brewers Exchange. And Diggy's Pizza, formerly Bix Bites at 175 Littleton Road. Diggy's is already open, but is seeking select board approval for an all-alcohol restaurant license. That's it for this week, Westford. Due to the Martin Luther King holiday on January 18th, we'll be skipping next week's news show. In the meantime, we leave you with Signs of Hope, orchestrated by the town's Girl Scouts.